Oh, hi! Didn't see you there. Welcome to the first episode of Musical Musicians' Music Musings, or, hosted by myself, Ben Spees, and my good friend Nick Prol of Nick Prol and the Proletarians. This week we have our first episode with guest Bob Drake, who you may know from his work in Thinking Plague and 5UUs. More recently, he's done a whole series of incredible solo albums that are truly unique and indescribable. We talked to Bob about songwriting, his history in music, and all sorts of fun stuff. So this is the first time we're doing this. We're working out some kinks. Hopefully you enjoy it, and we'll be back with part 2 of this interview next week.
But man, what happened?
All right. Okay, we got 40 minutes of recording.
All right.
But let's not all be self-conscious. We can just act as though we're not on camera.
Oh, well, I'm not. I have my drink here. This is it's 50% carbonated water and lemon juice and 50% beer.
Oh, well,
Very
this
nice.
is very nice. That's
So it's like a huge drink, and it kind of tastes like beer. So it's like you're having a giant beer, but with only half the amount of beeriness.
Isn't that kind of like a shandy, isn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Half lemonade and half
I
beer.
usually have a bit of sugar. I didn't do the sugar. But I love the lemon juice and beer. It's really good.
It is a classic.
And of course, it's good for you. So the more you drink, the healthier you get.
Exactly.
It's always good logic.
Let me have another drink. So I've been listening to both your records.
Oh,
And
both.
they're pretty cool. I mean, it's great. You know, there are people like you making this kind of music, and
Are you talking about the two Nick Prol records?
the Nick Prol and the latest Nick Prol and the Mercury Tree.
Oh, awesome. Very cool. I wasn't
which
sure
is
if you'd heard of that.
Truly something unusual and cool.
Spidermilk, that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Spider-Man.
love that album. I
Yeah.
love that album.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you some things about it. I know you're using the 17 notes per octave instruments, and how do you write for that? I mean, do you have a system where you have like a stave and there's 17 notes per octave, or what? You know, how do you go about it?
Yeah, well, people do have ways of notating it. I've never been a big user of sheet music, so I basically work from recordings and by my fingers and my ears. But I can say that you can fit, there within the 17 tones, there are things that resemble closely a standard major or minor scale. So that's sort of your scaffolding or reference point. But I sort of think of it as a third tone system, and stop me if I start ranting because I'll go on about this.
I'm curious. I want to know. Yeah.
But like in 17, one of the major defining factors is a whole step can be divided into 3 notes instead of 2. So, in fact, well, I got to stop myself from doing demos here. But
No, come on, do it. I don't care.
well, all right. Actually, let's talk about Nick for a second while I plug this.
Yeah, Nick, the most. Too late now.
No. He's very important. This is more important. He's the real star.
Yeah, right.
What's going to happen in this demo?
So that sounds like a whole step, pretty much, right? But it's actually 2/11 cents, so it's a little bit bigger than a normal whole step. So that's all it is. I just splitting that into and putting an extra note in there. So then you can learn to sing that, and that's sort of like the basic building block. And then the other fun thing there is because you have that split up, your minor or your half step is a little smaller, your whole tone's a little bigger, and then you got the neutral in the middle. That's the really novel, and then you can make a scale out of neutral tones.
Cool.
Nice.
It has a little bit of a whole tone flavor, but it's really something new. There's a 9-note scale with a leading tone, so it's like the leading tone gives it that pull.
Yeah.
And it sounds
It's
gnarly.
great listening to this stuff because you have these sort of cascading guitar parts, you know, and you hear it start out, and then suddenly you realize, wait a minute, this is really not something I've heard before.
Yeah, your brain.
Fun
It takes
thing.
a couple seconds for your brain to get used to it, almost. But
It
then,
really does, yeah.
but then it
yeah.
sounds normal after a couple plays, which is such an interesting
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Right.
And
so
and you had to you actually sang the same sort of scales, and you've learned to differentiate such small intervals.
right. Yeah. I just did that. Na 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 na. That's all I did. I started doing that all day until it felt normal to sing those little steps. And then you get confused. There's really a lot of psychological distortion that happens, especially as you get deeper and deeper into it. You start thinking, all this stuff sounds good, and you have to try and listen or get someone else to tell you how a normal person would hear it.
That's the next Mercury Tree album, right? Psychological Distortion.
Sound good. I'm also, right now I'm playing with I just built this, put it together. Let's see, can you see it?
No,
It looks like
got a flash of it.
instrument of some sort. Ooh,
It's a
okay.
22 tone guitar.
Oh. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So
Yeah.
I really like it. I think it sounds really good when you use a lot of like pull-offs and hammer-ons and stuff. It sort of makes things sound like expressive ornamentations, and somehow that makes the weird notes a little more cohesive to me. But anyway, that's
Cool.
my little turn the camera.
Yeah. I like it. It's
Most
Those are the
microtonal music I hear is kind of really hard to, or it's more impenetrable than what you made it. You made it accessible.
yeah,
somehow.
for
It's so
sure.
cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's not like an academic exercise or something.
Exactly. It sounds like, I don't know. It's just really cool what that album did.
Yeah, it sounds completely natural.
Wow, thank you so much. That's
And I like the tone. I like the clean guitar tones you use too. Very, very nice, sustainy but clean.
I felt like it was best to sort of mostly use clean tones, just to make sure there's like a weird area between clean and dirty where where it just sounds a little more out of tune for some reason. So I feel like the weird notes just like sing better if they're really clean or else just totally saturated.
Yeah. No, there's no in between.
Yeah, that's strange.
Anyway, that's my thoughts.
Wow,
I'm really
cool.
glad you enjoyed it. I tried to make it,
Well, yeah.
Something people wouldn't hate. And then we did take this material on tour, so we got to see how strangers would react to it, well or not.
Tune your guitars.
And what was that like?
Absolutely. It was really a love it or hate it thing. People who got it, got really into it. People who didn't understand it, I mean, some of them had a really visceral negative reaction. Just like, this is, what are you doing? I'm embarrassed for you.
You know, to get a reaction at all is a success. So
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I sort of
absolutely.
felt like we unintentionally became punk by introducing
Yeah.
sort of
Yeah.
unintentionally confrontational, or maybe it was partially intentional, but
punk is a mindset, not a genre.
but I really
feels
was
like-
trying to, I hope people understand, I was trying to make it sound beautiful and not just like, haha, I have these horrible notes I can bludgeon you with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there are people who are going to think that no matter what you do, and others who understand that you're just actually trying to make some interesting music. There's nothing you can do about that, you know.
Yeah.
You just get
Well-
tired of hearing the same notes all the time sometimes, you know?
Yeah, I know. It makes me feel so. I mean, I'm so traditional, you know. Everything.
Oh, what a, you're such a
completely
traditional.
That's
And that's all, I mean, that's what I do. You know, it's like I've done a couple of tunes where I deliberately really detuned the guitar to some non-existent notes,
That's great.
but there was no sort of plan to it or idea of what the intervals would be. I just wanted it all to sound completely off,
That's fun.
off. In the see, I'm even using a term "off," which is not the right thing to say
Well,
compared
that's
to the normal sort of scale that I play in.
right. Normative. It's about norms, that's a big part of tuning, is just the acculturation that we all have. It's been burned into us through our lives. So it's almost impossible to hear stuff without referring to that framework.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's funny you call yourself a traditionalist, because I mean,
I don't think traditional when I think
so.
Bob Drake.
No, it's all like strummy guitars and singing, you know.
That's the way you put it together.
Everything's completely traditional in its place, you know, and I don't know.
But
I think it's very traditional, yeah.
Kaleidoscope of genres, because I mean, you may call it tradition, but I don't think you can pick any album off the shelf and it would sound like a Bob Drake album.
No, not at all. I think the tools you're using are traditional, but the art you get at the end is not traditional.
Yeah, but I think it's, again, like, I mean, like I've done a couple of songs in different tunings, but 90% of them are in standard guitar tuning. Nothing weird, no weird notes or chords.
True.
And but that works for me, you know.
I feel like you use
absolutely.
a lot of really interesting harmonies, and certainly especially in the vocal harmonies, but interesting guitar chords as well. I mean, that's kind of
they're mostly really normal. They're mostly very stark chords with like fifths and octaves. Really normal. And
well, there's got to be like I know there's a bunch of funky stuff happening, so maybe it's modulations. It just sounds real. I mean, you do a lot of huge stacked harmonies. I mean, those I don't think it's all fifths.
A lot of
octaves.
what?
Huge stacked vocal harmonies.
Stacked harmonies, yeah, I do, yeah. I don't know what it is. I like because what I like listening to music is to be surprised pleasantly by a change.
Exactly.
Yes.
You know, where the melody is going. And when I say pleasantly, it doesn't necessarily mean, you know, it's pretty or it's beautiful, or it is beautiful, but
yeah, that's how I would define all my favorite music, is like anything with melodies that surprise me, you know, but in a good way. Like
yeah. And it took me about 5 albums to start to understand that, you know, that it was the melodic element that I love in music, and had to learn how to try to start making melodies. You know, everybody thinks it's so easy. But,
no.
And then you know, I heard, well, you know, there's a lot of people that do, like Tim Smith, his stuff. He never used like weird chords or no shocking harmonies or anything. It's all very familiar, but just so amazing. And that really also encouraged me that I was kind of on the right road, you know. You know, you can just play C, G, and D.
Yeah, he was a huge influence on me, yeah.
And it's the melody and just where it goes that gives you that lift and the surprise and
I just
makes you, where is this thing going? You know, where is it going? And I know that's an illusion too, because it isn't going anywhere. But I always use that term that it's going someplace, and that's what I love about a melody is or a piece of music. I like it when it feels like it's okay. We're starting out somewhere and it's going someplace, exactly. And it's sort of going. You know, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, hard sure.
Yeah, it really got to go somewhere.
Let's see. Can you hear us?
Huh?
Can you hear us, or can you hear me?
I hear you.
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah. No, I can't.
Okay, well, I won't speak then. But no, I was actually reading this on the Cardiacs group recently. Just what you said, how they only use like straight. It's pretty much all bar chords, just going all over the place. And it's so funny that I never realized that till it was pointed out, because the music is so dense and crazy in other ways that I never thought like, oh, there's something simplistic about the harmony. Because I mean, in a way it's simple, but in another way, it's just like these blocks are just like shuffling around.
It's like Tetris sometimes.
That's very much, yeah. So
But
it's cool that you're a Cardiacs fan. It's also interesting that you seem to sort of think melodically first. And when you were talking about interesting melodies, I was wondering if you're into XTC, because that I felt for me was something that
Absolutely
really introduced me to how weird a melody could be.
I really like everything I've heard, but I've never had an album.
Oh, wow.
You know, and I've had some little interaction with Andy Partridge, because he's a friend of Peter Blegvad. But but I don't know the music that well. But when I hear it, I always like it. Like it can be playing somewhere, and I don't know what it is. But suddenly my ear catches this. You know, what is this? This is really cool. You know.
Yeah, Ben and I are huge XTC fans. Definitely, we try to kind of use that inspiration in some of our stuff.
Yeah, I need to listen to more. I don't know that much, but everything I've heard, I like.
Yeah, he's got those melodies where you're like, oh, I know where this is going. This is sort of a Beach Boys type of thing, Beatles type of thing, and then the note comes in. You're just like, was not expecting that note.
Yeah, no, awesome. It's really. I also like music like that.
Yeah,
where it's really evidence that somebody really knows how to write a tune.
Absolutely. I've been utterly obsessed lately with Paddy McAloon. Do you know him?
I don't.
He's the songwriter from Prefab Sprout, kind of
I don't know. I know the name, but I don't know the music.
Yeah, that guy is just a songwriting god. I mean, just as far as those knowing a song's craft and melodies, it's just man. I'm gonna definitely have to pull some stuff from that for the next album I do.
Yeah, I was thinking more about Tim's music, because I met Kavus after Cardiacs had already finished.
Yeah,
and we became friends. We met at music festivals a few times, and then I asked him if he'd be in my band, and we did the Bob's Drive-In thing. And I still hadn't heard Cardiacs. And he was always telling me, "Oh, Bob, you got to check out Cardiacs." And I never did. And one day he gave me a bunch of CDRs when I was at his place, and one of them was Sea Nymphs.
Yeah, they're great.
And I was tiling. Did you hear this? Did you ever hear or read this story? I was tiling the garage, and I put on the Sea Nymphs CD. Okay.
No,
I have this huge garage, and I love tiling with broken tiles that I get for free from tile shops. And so I had this huge job. It took me like 2 years to do. And I always had music playing, because it's something I can do and listen to music at the same time. There aren't many things that I can do that with. So one day I was going to do some tiling, and I got all those. I said, "Oh, I'm going to get those CDRs Kavus gave me and have a listen to one of them. How about this one, Sea Nymphs?" Okay. So I mixed up my tile cement, a big batch. I got my trowel, and I put the thing in the CD, and I started the CD. And I turned to get to work, and the music started. Do you know the album, the first Sea Nymphs record?
I do, yes.
Yeah.
Have you heard it, Ben?
I have not heard that one yet. I actually just downloaded a bunch more.
Okay, well, listen to that first Sea Nymphs, because it's everything we're talking about.
Absolutely.
And the music started playing, and I stopped, and I stood there, and I was listening to it. And then there's like this 20 or 30 second intro of percussion, like this kind of very homemade percussion. And then the organ comes in, and these just incredible vocal parts suddenly come in. And I just stood there and I listened to the whole CD, just standing there staring into space. I can't remember when I've last done that. I can remember when I last done that, but it was with Hopes and Fears, Art Bears. But the whole Sea Nymphs thing played, and I just stood there, and then I played it again and listened to the whole thing again a second time.
Is that good?
And then I said, okay, I've got to check out this Tim Smith guy. And I've got to go, I want to write a song, man. I got to go try to write a song.
Absolutely.
Because that's the other thing. I love music that makes me want to try to write a song. Not to be anything like what I just heard, but when it gives you that excitement and inspiration, it makes you, oh man, I just want to write a song now. You know.
Totally. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. But that first Sea Nymphs album is really incredibly beautiful, and it's very different from Cardiacs because it's the lighter side, which I actually kind of prefer. It's
I love Sarah's voice on
sort
that.
of atmospheric and foggy, and a bit mysterious. There's no really rocky stuff on it at all.
No.
Although I love the rocky stuff too. But yeah, so that's what got me listening to Tim's stuff. And then I thought, okay, I'll look up Cardiacs. And I looked up Cardiacs, and the first song that came up was Dog Like Sparky.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, this is all, this is really good. This is really, really good.
Yeah, Cardiacs were just a huge gateway for me. And then Kavus, discovering him, and a lot of he would post about his tastes, and I just find out about so many great bands. And yeah, the whole Alphabet business concern family is pretty amazing.
Yeah. Well, that's what he kept telling me. He kept saying, you've got to meet Craig and Craig Fortnum, and you've got to meet these other people, the Larcombe brothers.
Yeah, they're genius.
And finally, when I started doing these little tours, I started meeting them, and we were doing gigs together and stuff. And that's how I met Tim and started playing for him. And
Kavus is on the new album that I see.
Yeah, I know. He's the last thing on the record, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
I just heard it the other day. Yeah. Book 2 coming soon or something. Go get it off the shelf.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, I was just thinking, as Nick was saying, Alphabet. You've got the Alphabet behind you, and the Alphabet on the album. So maybe that's it's a good segue.
Sure.
Well, I was just thinking. I was also thinking like stuff I wanted to ask Bob, but just I don't know. Maybe Nick, I should pass to you.
For something for me to ask Bob, or?
I'm sorry, I screwed it all up.
Ask me anything.
Anything. I tried to throw to both of you guys at the same time. I'm not a very good.
No,
host.
it's all good.
I'm not even the host. But one thing I was thinking, it's just so funny, and I'm sure for Nick it is too, to hear you talking about how simple your songs are. But I guess they can be. There's different ways of being simple and complex. And one thing I find really interesting is about you as a songwriter is your short songs. And one thing that I'm really inspired by that you do is you're so willing to just have a beautiful baby of an idea and then just strangle it right away. It's like,
no,
what it is. No. 15 seconds.
No, it's a totally wrong way to see it.
Okay.
Absolutely the wrong way to see it.
I thought it was an amusing way to see it, but sorry.
No, absolutely not. It does what it has to do. And unless there's a really good reason to do it again or to stretch it out, then of course do. Are you talking about, for example, like a thing that only comes one time and it's 5 or 10 seconds long, a change
You have a couple albums in particular. I think one of them's The Shunned Country. But you have a lot with short songs, but there's one in particular where you have like 10 or 15 second songs.
Yeah, that's the one, Shunned Country. Yeah.
It seems similar to like the Residents album, the commercial album. Like I remember them saying their reason that those songs were so short is that they feel pop songs repeat a melody too many times or something. Is that sort of the approach you were doing, Bob? Or
I don't know what's too many. There isn't too many, but I guess I just like to have a small object that's just this little thing, and that's what it is. It starts and it does a little thing and then it ends.
Yeah, just
and
a little
often
vignette.
That particular album that you're talking about, I mean, the whole idea of it was obviously to make miniatures. And what I love about making miniatures, is that because they're so short, it's really obvious how the beginning and the ends have something to do with each other. So as you hear on that album, there's a couple of songs where it's just some, a little chord change and a melody, and then something happens. And that's led you to that same chord progression and melody, but it's in a different key. And that's it. That's all it does. And I just really enjoy that. It's like a little journey, I don't know, a little object, a little thing, and it starts here and it went to this one, and then pling. That's it.
You remember
sorry.
Ben, the track Under the Bed from our first album?
Yes, I think that was supposed to be in that.
That was me trying to do a Bob Drake.
Right.
Yeah, well, it kind of worked. Yeah. But yeah, I know a lot of people have said that you just throw away an idea without developing it, but it isn't that at all. And because every one of those things is really organized and thought out. It's not just a little throwaway. Let's play this for 5 seconds and then this for 5 seconds. And every one of my songs are condensed out of 2 or 3 main ideas, and I never know when I come up with, I don't know, is that normal tuning? Yeah. You know, like, I don't know, I could come up with an idea, like, you know, you know, like that. It's like, oh, that's cool, and that could be a song, you know, that could be a whole song. What was it? But then, you know, so I just do that, and oops, a gift. What's this? Running out of time. We've removed the 40 limit. Oh, goody!
It fixed itself.
I just had a message pop up. A gift from Zoom.
I saw that.
Running out of time. We've removed the 40-minute time limit. Cool. Okay.
How thoughtful it is.
Yeah.
I feel like we're in a Bob Drake album now.
Yeah.
So I probably had that, you know. And I thought, oh, that's nice, you know. That could sort of turn into a song. I don't know where it's going next. So I'd get my little recorder out. This is before I knew anything about notation. So I'd record that little bit. Then I'd mess around some more. And then I'd come up with, oh, maybe that thing could go here. You know, where does it go? What is that chord? A variety of uses. Oh yeah, that's my one of my favorite chord progressions I took from what is it? It's I use this progression all the time. It's from you know, it's only love, and that is all. I love that B flat to G. It's only love, but I use that all the time. So I use that in that song. It's extending over millions of square miles at the bottom of the sea. Are a variety of uses. But what was I talking about? Oh yeah, just these little ideas. And I might have spent 2 days messing around with this, you know, wondering where could this go? You know, what could happen? And I might have had 20 different variations of what could have come next before I even thought, oh yeah, this melody, where does this melody want to go? It wants to go, and then I'd work out the next, I'd come up with this next bit. And still not knowing, where is this all going? What's it going to be? I don't know. And then it's a process of coming up with all these ideas and then condensing it all to the minimum there needs to be for a very clear song.
It's like the pure essence.
If that makes any sense, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I can't even remember where, you know, how these parts came about. Like the, oh, I know where this came from. Yeah, you're going to start hearing all my musical influences now. Oh, this one, yeah. Slowly, endlessly, and silently. That's like in Mary and the Librarian. You know, what can I do, my dear, to make it clear? Oh yeah. I need you madly, Madam Librarian. It's got all these. Oh yeah. In the moonlight. What's that chord? In the moonlight. A man could sing it. You know, I love all those, like a major to minor, and then go down a half step. Oh, yeah.
all descending. Yeah, it's just
Anyway, I don't know.
fitting.
But yeah, it's all about developing little clear ideas that somehow, in the end, have a reason to go from one to the other.
But don't overstay their welcome, I guess.
No, definitely not. I don't want to overstay the welcome. I also love, as you know, I like to do these blasts of guitar solos that are like 20 seconds, 15 seconds long. It's like the guitarist, fine, here's your chance, go! You got 10 seconds, go!
Love that.
So that's, I feel like I've heard a couple different things from you that sound a little like they're in opposition, but maybe they go together. Because first it sounded like, when you write a 15-second song, it's sort of like it's really a 15-second conception in your head. But then you also talked about this idea of just like messing around for a long time and then condensing. So I wonder, would you say you write a lot and then condense down, or do you also really have a lot of these small crystalline ideas that just sort of spring out?
Let's see if I can explain it. I've never tried. Let's say when some little idea comes along and I like it, and maybe it's just a few chords and a snippet of melody that feels like this could be good. This could lead to this could be a good part of the song. I don't know what part, but it's a part of the song. The other things will kind of naturally have a flavor that fit with it somehow. And that kind of inspires the kind of direction that I might start looking for, to wonder where it might go next. But I would say I've never, ever just sat down and picked up a guitar and wrote a song. Ever, never, ever. I don't know, I might have. Let me think, something may come to mind.
What about like 5 minutes ago?
What about what?
5 minutes ago, when you picked up the guitar.
What?
I think it wasn't a complete song, right?
Sure,
you didn't write "You Wonderwall" in 5 minutes or something.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know. And I may end up with a lot of little snippets of ideas, and I somehow have an idea that I think this bit is going to work with this other bit, but I don't really know how yet.
Yeah.
I'm not that concerned about it until I've got a really good, solid sort of starting basis, and then I can say, where is this going to go next? And, how many verses should it have? And
yeah, songs usually start in my head, and then I go to admit how I can accompany.
Really?
I usually don't sit down with the instrument and then base it on that, I guess. Is that similar to what you mean, or?
Me, no, I've never, ever have an idea first in my head. Never.
Oh, what?
So
how do you
never
start with the fingers?
I have to pick up something and do this. And then that can, okay. It's, what's next? It has to go somewhere.
Even for vocal melodies, you don't have them in your head?
Never. I have to have a chord progression first.
That's so interesting. Yeah, because Nick sends me his
I always have a chord progression and the melody kind of develop at the same time, because I always want the melody to tell it where it's going next. Again, with that song. That it all leads each other, because you say this melody's got to go somewhere. It's going somewhere. Where's it going to go?
That's so interesting.
You write over it.
So I have to have a chord or notes, a basis for a melody to sit inside.
Sure, a foundation.
And then it sort of strikes out on its own, or gives me ideas of where it could go.
So Bob, could you write over a drone? Do we have to have harmonic movement to have a song?
I could, but it doesn't interest me, because I love all the possibilities of the changing underneath, and what's going on the where the melody's taking it, and the surprising changes you could make. But there was something else I wanted to say too about what you asked me. Oh yeah, and it's the same with lyrics, because once I have, again, we'll use this song as an example. I would have finished the entire song just with a melody humming, or just la 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 melody. Da, 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 da. You know, and then once I have the whole thing, and I think this is really good, I like it. It's a good melody. It starts somewhere. There are nice changes. It has the payoff, as I like to say, in a song. We'll get to that. I think a song has to have the payoff somewhere. There's definitely a definite thing that's the reason the whole thing existed.
So every song needs that as a nugget, but that you're going to talk about that later. But you can go back.
Yeah. So once there's I've got the whole song with a la la melody or a hummed melody, and I've got the whole shape and length and everything. Then I write the lyrics.
Yeah, lyrics are always last for me.
Always, yeah, because then you've got something to put it on. You've got a melody and the timing and everything already there, and also with the freedom of, if you're writing working on the lyrics and you think, oh man, I need a couple more syllables to say what I want to say. Fine, you can extend, a chord by a beat or whatever, or snippet if you need to.
And you throw in a lot of spoken word as well, I've noticed.
Yeah, I think it worked. I think that's a nice what's the word? Alternative for some words now and then to speak it. And it can be quite funny and surprising, and
very, yeah. I love it.
I love those asides.
Me too, yeah.
They add so much character. Really,
it's fun.
Trademark, I'd say.
Yeah, but it's just endless fun, and then I got into you know the album what was it called? It was Isola de Lupi.
Yes. Beautiful cover.
That one was the album where I said to myself, and I knew I can't continue where I'm trying to go with some of this kind of songwriting with my usual way of working, which is what I just described. Coming up with little snippets, remembering them, or recording them on a little portable device, and then listening through 20 of them, 2 days later, and thinking, which was the one I liked? So yeah,
that's exactly what I do. Yeah, with my phone.
You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. And there were a couple songs. One of them was "Strike Off a Branch of Hazelwood," "Hollow Fang's Tower," or any other kind of tree. And on that song, I thought I had discovered an amazing new way of composing, which nobody had ever done before, which was what I just played just there, which was I had a little snippet of melody. I thought that's really nice, and then I put it backwards. I recorded it and listened to it backwards, and I liked it, and so I learned it backwards. And and I thought, wow, what a cool thing! And of course, it's one of the most normal thing in composition is retrograde.
Right.
And once I realized that, I said, I'm so stupid for not looking into this sooner, because what else am I missing? What other already existing techniques and tools are there that I don't even know about, and I'm struggling with my own sort of made up ways of doing it that take 50 times longer.
That's relatable. Yeah.
And so I said, okay, there's got to be, in this day and age, some kind of software where you can put the notes on the stave and play it back and listen to it and move them around and listen to it, and maybe I can learn about notation that way, because I couldn't read a note, and it was all, every time I tried to learn, it was just too mathematical and too scientific. So I couldn't get into it at all. And so I found a free open source notation software and started just playing around with it, and I absolutely loved it, and it was no different than I found, even though I didn't know what I was doing yet. You know, it was just the same as picking up an instrument and going and say, oh, okay, that's nice. What else can happen? How about that? That's cool. And it was exactly the same with the notation. You just put a note on the stave, or a couple of them. And I didn't know what it was going to sound like because I still hadn't learned to, make that connection. So I'd push play and it would go pling. I'd say, oh, that's a nice chord. What could the next one be? And it just took off from there, and I absolutely love it. And I've written loads of music that way now.
So that's a
so
major
cool.
change to your working process.
Yeah.
After being in your career for a while.
Yeah. It's it led to the Gardens of Beastly Manor, which was a completely different sort of record, I thought. And I really loved doing that.
The
stuff.
ARP, right? The ARP 2600.
Oh no, it's the Korg MS-20.
Oh, Korg MS-20. Okay.
Yeah, I just looked at it.
Classic.
It's over there.
Classic synth.
You can't see it. It's over there.
That was fun to hear. I'd never heard that sort of analog synth sound from you on any of your work.
I've always avoided it.
Uh-huh.
But I thought in this instance it could work. I because I was thinking almost like a theremin sound. It was really plaintive, kind of very plain.
It reminded me of that synth stuff that came out at the dawn of synth when they would do a lot of classical music, like the Wendy Carlos stuff, and it was imitating orchestral timbres, but like clearly fake. It's just interesting, sort of late 70s kind of sound in my mind.
I was thinking a bit the Outer Limits too.
Yeah.
And science fiction films.
Which that's a good segue for me. What are some of your favorite films that have influenced you, Bob? Because when I listen to your music, I imagine imagery when I listen to your music.
There's the Outer Limits, the 1962 Outer Limits. That's some of the most fantastic music. I still absolutely love it. Yeah. It's brilliant music. Other films, I can't think of other films specifically where specifically the music. But
not necessarily music related, just in general.
Yeah. Oh, I just love all those 50s and 60s science fiction films, like Fiend Without a Face and Kronos, Kaltiki, the Immortal Monster.
Oh yeah, that's
Screaming Skull. That's a favorite.
Is Kaltiki? Is that Mario Bava?
Yeah. Huh?
Is that
no,
Mario Bava?
No.
No, Kaltiki. I mean.
Kaltiki, yes, yeah.
Yeah. It's a good one.
The Screaming Skull has some nice music.
Yeah, I think we talked about the Screaming Skull over email a long time ago. I remember.
Oh yeah, it's one of my favorites. I love that film.
Yeah.
And oh gosh, what else? You name some of those 50s and 60s cornball science fiction films. I love them all.
Gosh, yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised, or I'm not surprised to hear that you're a horror fan, especially after the Skull mailbox for one thing. But one thing I kind of have a little joke about this with some of my friends who are also big fans of your music. My bandmates have listened to it in the van on tour a lot. But one thing we noticed is you have a lot of storylines about people investigating bizarre circumstances, and then inevitably they're never heard from again.
No, I think it's funny.
Like the classic Bob Drake song has that sort of expression.
Yeah, no, it's funny. It's so stupid. You just know it's going to happen. But yeah, I like the kind of horror stuff I like is the really subtle. I don't really care for like physical gore and stuff like that. I can enjoy a zombie movie now and then, but I love horror like M.R. James. Do you know Montague Rhodes James, the writer?
I should. I definitely should.
You really should.
Yeah.
Gosh, who wrote Blind Man's Buff? H. Russell Wakefield.
That's a familiar name.
Yeah. Blind Man's Buff, classic horror story. Nothing happens, so to speak. A guy goes to look at a house he's thinking of renting, and the evening is coming, of course, and it's way out in the country, of course, and he goes up to the house, and it's getting dark, and he goes inside, and the door closes behind him, and it's absolutely dark inside. He says, "Oh man, I know I've got doors right here." And he turns around and says, "Where's that door? I can't find the door." And he bumps into a chair. He says, "I don't remember this." But it's just that subtle kind of, there's no monsters, no. Well, M.R. James has monsters and ghosts, but they're the best monsters and ghosts ever.
I'm gonna have to read this guy.
Yeah, you really should. Some other horror stuff I love. Vernon Lee, who was she was what was her real name? She wrote under the name Vernon Lee because in those days, in the early 1900s, a woman wouldn't have been taken seriously writing ghost stories.
Which is crazy given Mary Shelley and everything.
Yeah. And spooky films. I mean, I like The Haunting because it's like the house is the spooky thing in the film. And I love cornball stuff like House on Haunted Hill with Vincent Price. That's
as a kid, and it left a big mark on me. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it scared me to death as a kid, and of course I didn't know it was a comedy. You know?
Yeah. Have you seen the Raven with Vincent Price? That comedy?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah,
that's such a fun one. I love that one.
Yeah, I've got all those. I love them. But yeah, that's the stuff I like. I don't really go for the modern stuff, you know.
Oh no,
I don't like
every now and then I see one I like, but not really.
Yeah, same with me. Every now and then, you know, despite themselves.
Yeah.
You know, and I love you know, I live here with Maggie Thomas.
Okay.
Is that another musician, or who is that?
No, she was part of Recommended Records and was the sound engineer for Henry Cow.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
She did all the RER album covers for the longest time.
Holy cow!
The Art Bears covers.
Oh, that's amazing.
Her paintings. Henry Cow concerts is hers.
I have the Art Bears on vinyl in the other room. That's amazing. That's so cool.
Yeah, and a lot of Faust. She also toured with Faust as a sound engineer.
Dang!
Wow.
And I met her the first time I met Chris Cutler when I came to London when we were going to do a tour with a band called Hail.
Okay.
Which Chris played the drums on the tours, and Maggie was a sound engineer. And on that very tour, this was in the late 80s, I mentioned one of my little fantasies was to have a house in the middle of nowhere with some recording gear in it and record people doing interesting music. And Chris and Maggie said, well, we've got this old house in the south of France and no one lives there. We could do it there.
Wow.
Yeah, let's do it. So we did. And Maggie was living in Rotterdam, and so she came to live here too.
That's so cool.
When I came with Dave Kerman because I knew about the house, and Dave and I wanted to do another 5UU's album.
Oh, I love your 5UU stuff.
Because we'd already done Hunger's Teeth.
Yeah.
And we wanted to do another one. And when I found out about this house, I said to Dave, why don't we go to this house? It's a big empty house, because I came and saw it on the tour. A big empty house. We could borrow Maggie's microphones and mixing desk, buy an ADAT machine. Remember those? They were an 8-track digital recorder. It used video cassettes. And they really sounded good.
Yeah.
And they weren't that expensive, and you could sync them up just by plugging them into each other. But anyway, so I said, why don't we go to this house and make the new record there in this big empty house, my favorite kind of place to record, and still is.
Yeah.
Big empty rooms. And during that time, I would decide if I wanted to stay here in France. And of course, I wanted to stay. And so after we did the record, Maggie was still in Rotterdam and touring with bands and stuff, and she came here to live. So I got my French residency. It was simple, just fill out a little form, piece of paper, and been here ever since.
That's awesome.
And Maggie's really good with electronic stuff too. So she built a mixing desk I used to use for recording bands, and compressors and all kinds of stuff in the studio.
I feel foolish for not knowing her by name, given how much she's involved with that I love.
She kind of, it kind of bothers me because I wish she was more willing to talk more about her experiences and stuff, because it's amazing stuff. But she just doesn't really care, It's like, I did it, whatever.
Yeah.
She doesn't want to, make a big deal out of it.
Art speaks for itself.
She's not a musician, but she loves weird music and any kind of good, heartfelt, real music.
Yeah.
But so we've lived here ever since. And I don't know why I brought up Maggie. Why did I bring up Maggie?
How you got to France, I think. The story of...
Maybe so, yeah.
Yeah.
And you were saying, Bob, you listened to our new Proletarians album, and you said you had some thoughts you wanted to share. That?
Well, yeah. I mean, besides, it's really great.
Thank you.
And a big step, I think, from the first one.
I agree.
Much more. I really like it. It's much more consistent.
Yeah.
From song to song, and I like that in an album. I like it when there's a real definite character for a whole album. I like that.
That's what I was going for. Yeah.
Yeah. It has it, and the sound is really good. The music is great, but as I told Nick that I thought I was a little disappointing because I thought the vocals were a bit lost.
Gotcha.
And like when the kind of big vocal arrangements come in, say there's been an instrumental thing going on, and then the singing starts. It's like they're sort of here, and they should sort of it should sort of be the focus of the part.
I think, not to speak
but
for
it's still kind of it's just a little bit underneath. It should.
I think was some of that purposeful, Ben. I think, right?
I'll be back after I stab myself in the eye.
No, I mean, people have said this about my stuff forever too. That the vocals are too low, but I don't agree with that because there's also a way of making the vocal the focal point without necessarily being loud or really upfront. And also, I used to do it when I was less confident about my own singing as well.
Yes, well, I certainly did that. At the end of the mixing stage, I did think, like, I think I should make sure the vocals are loud enough because this is Nick's album and the lyrics are important and some of the words are hard to understand. So I told Nick, I think we should turn up the vocals. What do you think? And he agreed, and so I did. And then I
still not loud enough.
tweaked the mixes and masters about for weeks and weeks after that. So perhaps somewhere in that process, something else pushed them down a bit. But it was very important to have them up front. I guess there always is that challenge when you have like sort of loud band arrangement. If you make the vocal too loud, the band loses all its power. So that's always with the Mercury.
I was also going to say that I'm not sure necessarily that it's something to do completely with the mix, but also the arrangement. Like I'm not sure that's the arrangement left enough room for the vocals to really be clear. Because there's a lot, like what I'm talking about. There's a lot of instrumental stuff going on. I can't think of a song name.
That's okay. They're all weird.
There'll be a lot of the band is grooving along, and there's a guitar part or two guitar parts going on or something, and then the singing will come in, and nothing will really change. Everything just sort of carries on. And the voice doesn't really like push the stuff out of the way a bit or become now this is what we were listening to. And when I'm mixing, always, forever and ever, always, I always think every part of the song, there's something, this is the thing that's the center of this piece. Yeah. Whether it's a melody or two instruments doing something. And I'll be working with people and I'll say, this, to me, this is the focus of this part. And I'll turn like the clarinet and the saxophone up and say, no, it's the guitar chords. And I'll say, no, but there's got to be a reason for this part, and when someone's listening to it who doesn't know it, you wrote it, you know what the guitar chord is doing, and so you're listening for it.
Right.
And someone else is just hearing music, and that's all I care about. Is I just want to hear a song. I don't want to hear, exactly what the guitar is doing necessarily. I just want to hear the song, and sometimes I had that feeling that maybe the definitive focal thing of each section wasn't very clear, or there were a lot of them at the same time, which can work as well, and maybe that's the idea, and I just need to listen to it.
It's certainly something to think about for the next one, so thank you for the feedback.
But it's also really about arrangement and when you were doing the singing, what were you listening to? The whole everything?
That's a good point. On the majority of them, I think I was singing just to my own demo, which was barely a skeleton of what you heard.
See, I think this is also something to do with it. I think you have to do it to the existing track.
I think some of them I did do that. Because later Ben wanted me to redo certain vocals, so some I did. So that's a good point. That's a good point.
Because then you'll even subconsciously sing in a different way to make sure it comes through better.
Exactly.
When you really hear everything that's going to be there.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Or you might think I have to change this part because they clash or they don't work the way I thought they did, which that's part of the fun of working out an arrangement as well.
The vocals, and I actually went into this album sort of as an experiment because the vocals and even the instruments are technically not improvised. I didn't just hit record and then wing it, but when I sat down to
obviously
when I sat down to record the song, I did make it up as I went along. Like I did not like a lot of this, and also when I'd have the skeleton of the demo, I'd hit record and then I literally would improvise the vocals on some of these, like just on the spot without any melody written in my head beforehand at all.
That's amazing.
I just went into it just as to challenge myself, and maybe that actually could have contributed to what you're talking about a little bit, if the vocals had been more pre-written, I guess.
The way we worked, and this sort of comes from how things started in the beginning, it was always Nick would make his guitar and vocal demo, and then we would build the track up around that by adding the band parts. And sometimes, I did ask Nick to re-sing it because, the demo version would be good, but it would be like a little tentative. And then like once you're singing to the rock band, it's got, you're belting it out more and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's like Apropods is one we definitely did that on, and it worked. In other cases, like it was hard to redo the vocals, or they just like had a certain vibe that we wanted to keep. So I don't know. I understand people make like vocal up remixes, so maybe I'll make one
the second printing or something.
Yeah, the karaoke version. But I
always do. Oh yeah.
I was just getting the thing we were talking about with focal point of the mix. I'm definitely aware of, and that's there's I think definitely some subjectivity when you're going from one section to another, what's dominating in this part. If the lead vocal was dominating and then guitar and clarinet and bass solo all start, one of those things has to sort of be primary, and maybe all those people think that theirs is the primary part, but
right.
the engineer is going to have to make the vibe.
Yeah, because you can end up with, and I've heard so many records like this, where everything's all kind of even, and in the end, it's what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. It lacks some movement or excitement because it's all so level all the time.
Yeah.
instrumentally, and nothing really suddenly like this is the main thing now. Wham! Look at this.
That's interesting. Yeah, when I listen back on the album every now and then, I don't hear that myself, but that's because I'm so familiar with it. So
Of course, yeah. And again, it may just be familiarity.
Put it on in the background while tiling sometime.
yeah. No, I listened to it here in my studio several times before we did this because I wanted to at least have heard it enough to be able to talk about it and tell it.
Were there any aspects, moments, or textures on it that you thought did work pretty well?
Well, just overall, that's the consistency. I thought it was much more of a consistent. The other one seemed more patched together from song to song.
Sure.
Which it probably was. I don't know.
Yeah, the first one was like a kitchen, sort of a, I don't know, cabinet of curiosities sort of thing, where it's just we threw all kinds of stuff in there and without thought of the overall cohesion. And then the second one, I was trying to be more cohesive.
Yeah, and that I noticed right away. And the sounds are all very good. It's really well recorded, and nothing to say about that except it sounded good, better than the first, I think, in every way.
For sure.
And do you do the singing last?
So like I was the singing on some I did it first, like I was saying, but then some I later re-recorded.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I think it's important. Well, it depends, really. I shouldn't say that because it doesn't matter how you do it as long as it works in the end and you're happy with what you get.
Yeah.
But I always do it last.
I'm happy with it.
The last thing I do always is the singing.
That's interesting. I think I might want to try more of that approach on the next one for sure. But I am happy with how it turned out on this one.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, well,
I always do the guitar first. What would I do? How do I do it? I always do the guitar first. I think then I do the drums. But I do all the guitars, and I make sure all the guitars are done.
It's so interesting how every musician and band has a different order they prefer. Yeah, I
like that because the guitar and the melody is the basis of everything I do.
Exactly.
And so even in every song, did you see my the lawn ornaments dissection videos?
No, I haven't seen. That's one of my favorite albums of yours. I should.
Oh yeah, no, I was when I was getting ready to do that show I did in May. I don't remember where I played the bass. I don't know if you even knew about that one.
I think I saw a video. Was there?
I did a show where I made backing tracks, and I played bass and sang along with it as a live stream.
That's cool.
And while I remembered that I had one song from Lawn Ornaments, the multi-track, because normally the moment I finish a song, I delete everything. I just throw it all away because I never want to go back and remix it. Because I don't even mix. We'll get to that story later. Because I don't mix. I hate getting to the end of a song. Say, now you have to mix it. I hate that. I bounce everything as I add it. When I do the drums, I say, I really like this drum take, except the ending, I like the second drum take, so I'm going to use these two. I bounce them together. Then I say, I really like the way the guitar and the drums sound together. It sounds great. I bounce that together. And then I'll do the bass. And okay, that sounds really good. Bounce it together. Throw away all the original stuff. And all I have is one stereo track of guitar, bass, and drums, for example. Then I'll say, now I'll do some piano and organ. And the same thing. So in the end, I just have a bounce, 2 tracks together.
That's really amazing.
Because I don't like having to go back and sort of fiddle with all the details again. Because I like to go with, I really like this right now, so keep it.
That's very similar to my approach, I think. And
because as soon as you have that excitement and sort of thrill, like, wow, this is great,
But sometimes when I do
you'll never
that,
get it again if you take it all apart and try to put it all back together.
Yeah, that's definitely how I approached it. But I would find that if I did it that way, Ben sort of encouraged me to do a bit more fiddling, just to
Well, sometimes I would want to fix something on one of the tracks, and then it doesn't have the multi-tracks available, and
lessen the workload for Ben. I tried to do some fiddling on my end too, but I am very compulsive in that way with
I mean there's no definite way it always should be done, but that works for me. And
it certainly does.
I wouldn't really
I find that fascinating because there's no safety net. It's what I've heard is like that's how people used to work in the really old days, and they only had 4 tracks, so they had to keep.
That's how I learned.
I
learned to record by bouncing between 2 tape decks.
Right. But I think the really fascinating thing is, I think of you as like being a super high level mixing engineer. So it's just nuts to think that like you're taking away all these options from yourself. But it's also, I can also see that it forces you to, this is how you can work so quickly. This is how you can release so many albums. You have to make all the decisions in the moment. Yeah.
And if you look again, this all came up because of the lawn ornaments thing. But I'll remember to send you the link, because as I was looking for I found that song because I wanted to do the backing track and sing and play bass along with it. And unbeknownst to me, I had like most of the songs still, the multi-tracks, not completely finished. Most of them didn't have the vocals. So I thought, oh, this could be really fun to listen to these and see what's there, because I hadn't listened to it since the album came out. I listened to the album, but I didn't really remember what was going to be on all these tracks. So I thought this could be fun, and so I did it as a live stream.
That's awesome.
And then in the end I put it on YouTube. But I'll send you the link, because most of the songs are there, and you can see, like the guitar track. It's a stereo track with a zillion guitars all bounced together.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. That's probably my favorite album of theirs, I think.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'll send it. Yeah.
Yeah, we can link to that in this video.
But I like that. No, but on the other hand, I do like mixing, and I love when people send me stuff to mix. Like I'm working on mixing an album now for an acquaintance. A really young guy, good songwriter. He plays all the instruments. Really good singer, and I like encouraging younger people, who are just starting out. I think he's like 20 or something, and I think he's good. And so I'm mixing his album, and he's got the usual, every the bass drum, snare drum, tom, hi-hat, which I've never used. Who needs a special track of hi-hat?
Snare bottom mic.
No, and I told him, next time you have to, and so I did my thing of putting a snare drum up against the speaker, and just running the snare drum through the speaker and miking the underside of my snare drum to get some in the sound,
Heard of people doing that, yeah.
Yeah, no, man, I don't like that top snare head sound, with no in it. You gotta have the and then you try to, people just EQ it, and then like the hi-hat goes, you get this, hi-hat, and the cymbal.
Got ice pick in there.
I find in your own stuff, Bob, I find your recordings sound very unhyped, like in that a lot of modern recordings will have like a lot of sub bass, a lot of treble, and I don't really feel about that.
Yeah, no, I don't like that. I'm old fashioned, I like records, I like, I don't, you have to know what's the, because again, I get this on stuff people send me to mix. You hear the bass drum, and it's like, it's obviously they boosted, 60 hertz, to the maximum. And then the bass guitar, they've done the same thing, and then they're saying, I really, I don't know how you're going to mix this stuff, And the problem is, what is supposed to be the bass instruments? Do you want this bass drum to be the bass instrument? That's fine. Just you got to make the bass guitar thinner. Otherwise it's not going to work. But in my music, the bass guitar is the bass instrument, and the bass drum is part of the drum kit, you know, and it should have that, you know, this thing that pushes along, you know, and not get in the way of the bass guitar. And also, my big complaint about 99% of bass players, always, still, they never leave enough space, you know? They fill up they go boom, 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 when they could go boom, boom.
Yes.
Or,
well, I
or
really
staccato.
tried to leave some space in the bass parts I did for this album. So
yeah. It's such a big difference when you do that. And this started I'm very guilty in the early days, of course, of doing the same thing, of playing the eighth notes or quarter notes. Every one sustains to the next one. So I'm as guilty as anyone. And it wasn't until many years later I started to figure this out. And now you'll get bass part like, my favorite kind of bass parts,
right. Because when it's not playing and then it comes back, you hear it so clearly.
Yeah. You know, just leaving all that space. And there's another one. Oh, it's almost the same notes, isn't it? What's a good bass line? I don't know, but I love when I'm working on a bass part now, I like this idea of leave as much space as note.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not like not like religiously, but that's a really fun thing to do. And especially on an album like Lawn Ornaments, where there's so much going on, I really was thought about that. You know, I tried to leave a lot of empty space.
Well, it's somehow.
Yeah, I think Ben definitely you did that on the album, and it served it very well.
Yeah, I noticed too. It's very clear. Yeah, and it leaves all that beautiful space for the guitars and the drums, and just leaving. You know, instead of going, you go. Something that simple just makes the music punch, you know?
Yeah.
I want to ask you about vocals, because I was just thinking just a little bit more.
I missed the first part. What did you say?
Oh, I was going to ask about vocals, but tie it into a bit more of your history, because of course you were in Thinking Plague, a great band, and my band got to play a couple of shows with them a few years ago.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting to see, obviously the music you and Mike Johnson make now seems pretty far apart, but you were in 5UUs together, you were doing the original Thinking Plague album. So it's really interesting to see how your voices like sort of melded and diverged. And one of the things he mentioned to me, I told him I really loved the song This Weird Wind. And of course that was the first I had heard of your singing at the time. And he mentioned that you were very insecure about singing, which I was shocked by, because it seems to me you have a really beautiful, clear, expressive voice. So what was that journey like for you, starting to sing more?
Well, my whole problem about all that was I knew that I had the ability to be a good singer. I knew it. I also knew I was not ready yet to make records and go on tour as the singer, because I needed more experience to figure out what I'm doing. And as it turned out, I was learning how to do it by making those records, including my first one, but also the 5UUs and that Thinking Plague song, and doing those tours with 5UUs, which I did not enjoy at all.
What was tough about it?
It's because just what I said, because I knew I could do it, and I knew I wasn't ready. I just opened my mouth and a sound would come out, you know. How do I make the sound that I'm looking for? You know, I don't know, you know. And I didn't like the sound I was making. It was so clunky and awkward. and or just, I would say not what I wanted, not in the area that I was wanting to get to.
Did you have
which I eventually have been able to do, but it takes a lot of experience. And I mean, think of it like you've just learned to play the bass, okay? You know, you just learned how to do it. You know, you just can sort of do it, and suddenly you got to make a record with this band that you know a lot of people know, and then you're going to go on tour, on stage, and you can hardly play the thing. You know, it's like, you know, that's no fun. And
I really like
there were fun elements because it's very easy for me to play the stuff and sing it at the same time, which a lot of people find, you know, bizarre or they can't do it, so they think it's hard, you know.
I love your thing, the whole ecstatic thing, and I love the worlds that you create. I thought maybe it might be interesting to hear a bit about the whole animal thing and how you started, because I mean, you're an animal guy from way back before there were any furry communities and stuff. What was your...
It's my latest tale.
Here we go. Nice.
I wanted one that would drag on the floor.
Very nice.
Yeah, no.
So this was, you're like a old school furry before it was even
absolutely
a thing.
No.
So
from as
your
far
journey
back as I
with that?
remember. Yeah. No, I was always that, as far back as I can remember, and still am.
What was that like? Like growing up with that interest, and probably was rare back then, right?
It was, and as one gets a bit older, one starts to think, you know, I wonder if anybody else, you know, sort of feels the way I do about these cartoon characters, you know. And you know they do, because you can just tell, you know, you have to love these characters to animate them and draw them and give them life, you know. And it's pretty obvious. But
what cartoon characters
were... I was
were...
always just absolutely crazy about them. And you know, all sorts of just those kind of fantasy animals, you know.
Were there any particular cartoon characters that you really...
Yeah.
Which ones?
Yeah. Well, Baloo the Bear, when the Jungle Book came out in 1967, I was 10.
Okay.
And again, I tell this story on my bio, where even at that age, I was 10 years old, but somehow I knew, I don't think other people feel the same way as I do about this cartoon character. But so that was one of my first crushes. Yeah,
that's cool.
And so I just started drawing characters from my fantasies and to entertain myself, you know, in all aspects. And I don't know if you've seen any of those.
I have seen some. Yeah. Where can people viewing this see more?
People are viewing this? Oh my God!
If people view this,
well, there's some time ago I thought I'd keep, because I don't really draw anymore. I had sort of artistic pretensions earlier in my life, and I don't really do it anymore. But when I discovered the sort of furry fandom when I discovered it in the 90s, early 90s, and of course all this stuff I've been drawing all my life, you know, fit right in there. You know, this is you know, an instant audience, and actually made some effects on the kind of art people were drawing, and.
That's cool.
Where was I going with all this? And I used to put it on my website and here and there, and then I thought I'd just rather keep it kind of for the people that really want to look for it, you know. So it's on. There's a furry social media site called furaffinity.net.
I've heard of that. Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah, and I have an account there, and you have to be a member to see the good stuff.
Well,
That's
it's funny.
really
I saw some video of you performing, or I think playing drums in a bear suit or something.
Yeah, bear dog. Yeah.
What a fun, wacky guy. This goes along with the music and then over time, I was like, wow, he really talks about animals a lot. And then
Yeah. No, it's all part of it's there's no sort of separation. It's all completely the same thing. And I finally the first time I finally really fulfilled this fantasy of mine was on a song called Dret Tancat Saves the Multiverse, which was on Arx Pilosa.
Yeah.
And I used all these funny words like, the Council of Elders and grimoires and all these silly words. But when I was a kid listening to records, I used to always imagine a story, like the album told a story about an anthropomorphic dog going on some big adventure.
Oh, nice.
And my favorite album to do that with was Uriah Heep, Demons and Wizards.
Okay.
Which I still love. It is a great album.
I have not thought of Uriah Heep in a long time. That's some old school.
Yeah. Oh man, I love Uriah Heep. I love that album, Demons and Wizards. That's the
Wizard
best.
Frog.
Demons and Wizards.
Yeah,
Don't bother anything after that.
I feel like
Uriah Heep Live, the album Uriah Heep Live, great. But Demons and Wizards, great. But anyway, I used to imagine this anthropomorphic dog going on an adventure. And then it wasn't until I did Arx Pilosa, I said, okay, I'm going to finally do my song about an anthropomorphic dog going on an adventure. And I did.
And I think even though some of our creatures on our album don't have fur, there is some overlap there as far as I love creating worlds. Like I think you do too.
Yeah.
Bestiaries.
Well, again, going back to the bear suits, I found this woman called Lex Rudd who built costumes, and she built that for me from my drawings.
Oh wow!
So if you know my drawings, it really looks like my sort of standard kind of character that I like to draw.
It does, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, really, she captured it so perfectly.
You reminded me of something, bringing up Arx Pilosa, which made me think of, I think the song "Me and Apocalypse Fox" is on.
Yeah.
And, I was some people were showing me some stuff about early music, and I was checking out this guy. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name, but Guillaume de Machaut.
Yeah, Machaut. Yeah.
Yes, and the first thing I heard reminded me so much of Me and Apocalypse Fox. I was like, I bet Bob's been listening to something like this.
Yeah, you bet. It's a direct quote. And you must have noticed, you have the new album, the beginning of Me and Apocalypse Fox Go to Venus.
Yes.
It's an even more, that is literally a direct quote from Le Messe de Notre Dame.
Oh, that's It's so gorgeous,
awesome.
And I think I read something about you getting into that music, but discovering it more myself. Any thoughts on that? I think it's just so beautiful.
Oh man, yeah, a huge revelation. I mean, it came about the same time that I first heard Tim's music, and so those two things made a big impact. And I mean, because I love voices, I love the sound of singing, and I'd also noticed, I mean, I always love on the old 50s and 60s records when they just sort of sing along in a bop, 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 bop. And they used to do that because they couldn't afford a horn section,
Oh, wow.
as I understand. So they just sing the parts.
Well, that's what Nick does.
That's what I do.
It gave birth to a whole genre, of music.
Yeah, our saxophone or horn player, Dave Newhouse. Are you familiar with him?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, from the Muffins and stuff. What I was doing, at least on the first album, was I would sing all his parts, but I would just say the word Dave for every note. So I go Dave, Dave, Dave.
I tried to get you to keep the Dave because there were some parts where it sounded good to have it go Dave, Dave, Dave.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to do that on the next one. We'll keep the Daves. We'll keep the Daves.
But on this topic, I had noticed also in making my own music how cool it is where if you want some chords happening, and I'm just looking for the chords, and so I just pick up whatever mic happened to be there, and I'd sing the note, then it'd sing the next, you know, 3-note, 4-note chords. And I think that sounds really good. You know, there's no reason to play it on the organ or something now because it sounds great with this just going, you know, singing these notes. And there's just something, yeah. Oh, I thought someone knocked on the door. Oh yeah. Yes, vocals. And I was working with Chris Cutler on this Probes series that he does. This radio series called Probes, which starts with early music and goes wherever it's going. And he had a few examples of that kind of Ars Nova polyphonic vocal music, and just a few little snippets. And every time those came on, you know, it was just something inside me, just bang, you know, what is this, you know? Wow. And somehow I came across that piece, the La Messe de Notre Dame by Machaut. And there's a live version of it that I found on YouTube. And I really literally listened to it 200 times, wow, you know, over a two-year period or something. And it was also just about the time I was starting to use musical notation. And but at the start of it, when I was listening to this music, I thought, how do you even begin to write something like this? You know, where do you start? It was like there are parts of it where all the voices are singing, where it was almost like this this kind of amoeba that was constantly changing its shape, and every now and then it would go and then start like this shape-shifting thing, and every now and then these like sunny, amazing chords would just suddenly stick for 5 seconds. So how do you do that? And of course, you have to use notation. You know, how do you write 4 individual moving lines? I can't pick up a guitar and do
like voice leading, right? That's
you know, and it's just oops, ripped my pants.
Oh no!
Uh-oh.
Yeah, they had a little hole in it, and I was playing with it. They're pretty worn out.
A very special video.
Yeah. So all that kind of singing stuff, and I just love to hear, you know, those layers of voices. It's just so ecstatic and visceral and beautiful.
Yeah.
And fun to do as well. It's really fun to do.
Isn't it just amazing how striking that can be? And as so many musical developments have happened since then, and yet we still find it that, you know, I haven't had that on for hours and hours and hours, not getting sick of it. That's very unusual. I usually have like kind of a short attention span, but I was just, get in there. So that's
and it's also the kind of stuff that there's really something to learn from, which is another reason I like hearing it, because I feel it's feeding something. You know, I like music that feels like it's feeding my own attempts at making music and giving me something I can use, even without necessarily knowing what it is, something I can use in making my own music. And that's what I always loved about all the bands, you know, that I grew up listening to. You know, I felt like they fed me something, you know, because they were some of the like band like Yes in 1972. You know, they were really good. You know, they were trying something, and they were getting really good at arrangements and you know, all those rock bands, you know, of the time. You know, I picked up stuff from them, and now I'm picking up stuff from these even older music.
Yeah, it's great. You gotta have a diverse thing to feed from.
But what's really funny and interesting to me is you know, what for every person, something different kind of strikes them, like you know, like Mike Johnson, he really loves Schumann, And I forget if it's Robert or William. It's one of them's very more normal, and one of them's more interesting
I
or
think
more
it's
unusual.
Robert, but yeah, with him, it's all 20th century classical music.
Yeah.
I'm really surprised
Okay, yeah.
how focused
And-
his interests are.
And so I asked him, what are some of your favorites? Because I want to listen to some. And I listened to a bunch of them, and I like it. I mean, it's really great. But so far, I never got that like something just. What is this? What is this? How
that
do you
feeling.
do this? But with other things like the vocal piece we were talking about, that just like hit me like a ton of bricks. What is this? How do you do it?
That's how microtonal music hit me. That's what hooked me. Because obviously there's harmonies and melodies that you just can't hear any other way. And once you start enjoying that, it's very addictive.
Do you remember? You must know it. There was in the 70s a none such record of quarter tone piano pieces, and there were 4 composers on it, and one of them was Charles Ives.
Yes, I know Ives. Vishnegradsky is another one. There are several early 20th century quarter tone composers. I think Vishnegradsky is my favorite.
Okay.
They're all interesting. It's very of a particular time. It's weird. Is like everyone was doing it for like a decade and then they stopped.
Yeah.
Weird.
But the thing is about that record. The thing about that record was, I had the feeling listening to it that the only one of those 4 who just used it as a really natural way of making music was Ives.
Yes.
It didn't sound like he was doing something deliberately to show it off, or hey, listen to these funny notes. It was just music. It was very natural. So I just wondered if you were familiar with that record.
Yeah, I've definitely listened to. I'm sure I've listened to those pieces because I've listened to all the quarter tone piano that's on YouTube.
I remember it's got this bit that goes da 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 da. I don't know if that rings a bell.
I don't know if that's good, but just
I'll try to play it on the piano.
You have an out of tune piano as well as a regular one.
Yeah. I'm playing this with the lid on my hand.
The lid on the hand.
I don't recommend it.
Oh no.
I don't recommend it. Yeah, I have a really out of tune. I have a 200-year-old piano that hasn't been tuned in at least that long.
Whoa.
Wow.
At least.
Yeah. I don't think you could hear it. It's out in the garage. But I used it on Serial and When on whatever record that was on. You know that song? That thing. I received a TV show from whence I do not know, and his dual host resembled vinyl oven gloves, one bright blue, one purple, and they politely introduced themselves as Serial and When. No, that's not the right chord.
That's great though.
Anyway, I used the out-of-tune piano on that one.
That's great. Yeah, I think what you said about having it be actual music is really, really important in my mind, because it's easy to make demos. It's easy to just like throw in weird notes, but it's quite a balance to find between, like, obviously you want to use them since you have them, but you don't want them to be like, ta-da, I did this.
Yeah. No, there's a reason for it. There's a reason for it. Yeah.
So when you can find, like,
you're
how they-
definitely doing. You are achieving it very much
so
so.
much. Thank you so much, sir. We've been on for a while, but I did think of one other question for you. I think this mostly turned into us interviewing you,
Yeah.
which is great. I hope that's okay with you, Nick.
Oh yeah, whatever.
But one thing I also noticed on your album is just like you sort of have this like country style shredding that you throw in a lot, but it's like very warped sounding as well. So do you think of, I feel like I heard that maybe you were in a country cover band, or I don't know how you picked up those chops, but they're certainly notable. What can you tell us about that?
Well, that's also a funny story. I never really paid attention to country music when I was younger. You know, I wasn't interested. I wanted to hear rock music, you know, with fun, with weird sounds and, you know, dirty, you know, I wanted to hear Uriah Heep and Yes and Deep Purple, you know. And I never listened to country music. And when I moved to LA in 1989 and was away from all the people I knew in Denver who were songwriters, that's when I had to start writing my own songs, because I wanted, you know, I said, well, now's the time for me to start trying to write my own songs. And I just started messing around, and that sort of countryish flavor sort of just came in the guitar playing. And it intrigued me. And so I went out and I bought some records. I bought some, like kind of hillbilly country records and contemporary banjo records. And I really loved it. And I thought, wow, you know, there's a lot of stuff I've really missed over the decades here. Same with like blues and kinds of music I really wasn't interested in and didn't want to hear at all when I was young. Like I didn't like any of this like blues-based rock bands. You know, I didn't want to hear that stuff. And I didn't kind of appreciate it until much later. But it was kind of the same with that stuff. It just kind of appeared in my music. And I liked it, and that led me to go out and listen to contemporary banjo and listen to some of the classic, the stuff they call hillbilly music from California, you know, in the 50s, you know, like Speedy West and.
I love how you incorporated that. It's almost sort of part of the signature sound almost at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like a deliberate thing. It just kind of appeared.
Yeah, know? I like that. I like that.
And I think in recent years, I've probably been trying not to do it so much.
Yeah, moved away from it a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I wanted to go away from it. And I don't know why, if I even did.
Well, I really...
That answer your question?
Yeah.
That's honestly given me a much greater appreciation for that playing and like just like the skill involved in it and the sound of it. I think, you know, when it's not contained in like some cheesy pop country performance and it's like taken away from all like these signifiers of country that kind of turn people off, you know, myself included. I just appreciate it for the pure instrumental.
Well, you got to hear the real stuff, you know. Like the commercial country, you know, is as much garbage as any modern commercial. Fill in the dots, you know. Just crank out this factory junk, you know. But the serious stuff is just incredible. Like listen to you must have heard of Earl Scruggs, the banjo player. And he kind of invented a genre, you know. There's a video. So I'd heard this piece where he's playing, picking us all. Like all this stuff is this bluegrass stuff. It's all like 16th notes, all really fast. You know, there's no like slurring or messing about. It's all like really definite 16th notes, very, very fast. And he's picking along. Suddenly these two notes go, these like whole step bends. I was thinking, how the hell is he doing this on the banjo? Because I bought a banjo and tried to learn how to play it. And I finally saw a video, and as he's playing this piece, raging along, picking, he suddenly reaches up and goes, changes the tuning without missing a beat.
I thought it was going to be a B bender, but that's
no. He actually reaches up and detunes two strings.
That's crazy.
Without missing a beat, and then plays. Suddenly the next part comes and he reaches and puts them back.
Dang.
Without missing a beat. You know?
Multitasking.
and that's, you know,
can't be wrong.
that's just incredible. And you know what else I'm really glad about all those kind of amazing super musicians. I'm really glad I never wanted to be like that, because you know, it would have been, you know, I can't do that, you know. Those people have been doing it since they were kids, and hanging out with the other experts at that kind of music and teaching them the techniques and practicing. I'm just listening to it and saying, how do you do that, you know? And so I'm really glad I never wanted to be like that. I'm perfectly happy to listen to it and do my own little, you know.
Regarding taking like old country kind of leaning styles and incorporating weirdness, I'm sure you know. What are your thoughts on Eugene Chadbourne?
Oh, he's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did a gig with him.
That's cool.
Me and Mike Johnson did a gig where we opened for Eugene in Denver.
That's cool.
That was loads of fun. No, he's super entertaining. You know, if you got to see him live to get the whole picture. He's very funny and extremely entertaining and very talented. You know, and he's got all that old banjo skill, and he knows all the ancient songs. And
that's what it reminded me of a little bit when you were talking about it.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. You know, I never ever tried to learn like a traditional banjo song, you know, ever, you know, and I don't want to, you know. I just rather use it. I like the sound of it, you know.
Exactly.
And so I use it in my own way, and it kind of fulfills that idea without trying to be like, you know, Earl Scruggs, because I can't, you know. Or any of those amazing banjo players. There's a zillion of them.
Yeah, you take what you like and use it. That's the way to do it.
And I just like to go, you know, I'm happy with that, you know. Great, this is great, you know.
Rock and roll.
Great. What else do you need? Yeah, I haven't done much of the funny picking stuff in recent years too. I kind of wanted to get away from it for some reason. Probably because, I know why. It's because I finally learned how to write songs. Or no, I won't say I learned. I'm learning. Because I think I used to do a lot of, I know I used to do a lot of that fancy stuff because something's got to happen, you know. Mm-hmm. There's not really a melody. It's not really a song. It's just a thing. And so, yeah, there was a point where I think it was the Skull Mailbox where I think that's where I kind of turned the corner of I'm not just doing a bunch of stuff that then I'll do something to it to make it interesting. I finally figured out, it's just the songs that I like and the singing and so I started trying to write songs finally on that album. On the Skull Mailbox and Other Horrors.
Great album.
It's a great album.
Yeah. It's the first of mine that I think is good. You know, the others they're okay. You know, there's nothing wrong with them, but I think it's the first one that I could see a glimmer of. Okay, I'm leaving my old thing behind, and I'm starting to find the road. You know,
I do love your first solo album. What Day Is It?
It has its quality. It has the quality I was trying to do, I guess.
I love the song Rainy.
It's
remember that one?
Yeah, well, you know, again, it's also overly arranged to me now when I listen to those songs. You know, just like, you know, this block, you know, and then this one, and then this one. And then this one, you know.
Well, yeah. maybe I haven't progressed past that myself because it still sounds good to me.
Oh no! Well, no. Hopefully the illusion is created that it all sort of flowed.
Right.
But when I hear it now, I think, oh man, you know, some of the ideas are okay, but you know, it's so square, you know. And the other thing I realized on that album was there was something wrong with my strumming. And I knew it at the time. It was just like with the singing. It's like
Like
I don't,
technique,
there's something wrong with the strumming. It's not right, and it's impossible to describe really. But I know it when I hear it, and when I hear the right kind of guitar strumming as a rhythm guitarist. And on that album, it doesn't have it, and I think that's one of my other problems with it. There's something wrong with the strumming of the guitars. It's not the rhythms they should have been doing to do the part I was imagining they were supposed to have been doing. And wow. I think I don't think I figured that out for a long time, and then listening to all the old good rock records, with acoustic guitar strumming, there's something about the way you strum it, the rhythms that you use, there's a reason for those rhythms, There's a reason. The reason is they work, and I didn't have someone to show me that, so I sort of had to bumble on my own and figure it out.
It's a deceptively complex thing to strum a strummed guitar part, getting the rhythm perfect and the feel perfect. It seems easy, but it's not.
Well, it isn't even what I'm not even talking about, like being in time or something. It's just like the kinds of rhythms,
right,
that make the song sort of flow, or rock or bounce or whatever it is that you want it to do. I find them like on the Cemetery Trees, that song. Listening to it now, it's like, to me, it sounds very leaden. It's just like, plodding along. But we did that song, and I had a band in 2008 with David Kerman and David Campbell. And we did some gigs,
right?
Huh?
You did the Bob's Drive-In that had those live tracks with that?
No, I'm talking about 2008. So this is long before that.
My bad.
And we did a tour in the U.S. and we played at Orion Studios. I remember that. But we played that song. We played a bunch of the songs actually from What Day Is It? And they were so much better because I'd learned a thing or two in the intervening decades of playing and how to make them do a little more what I thought they were supposed to be doing. So I don't know why I told that story. Oh, guitar strumming, yeah.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that show was recorded, since, of course that's a recording.
It was, but it's not really worth...
Really?
No.
I don't believe you. I still want to hear it.
Yeah.
I don't believe him either.
No, and we had a guy playing saxophone and keyboard, and he often would forget to play.
Well, you like that, right?
That caused a few moments that were a bit disappointing. But he did science experiments live on stage, so that was good.
That makes up for it.
But he bit off a bit more than he could chew musically, because he was more into improvising and jazz. And I think he thought it was going to be a piece of cake to play this, sort of poppy rock music. But he realized, there's a lot of, in rock music, when a change comes, it's really there, bang, the change happens. Everybody's got to hit this rhythm together or it doesn't work, rock music, it takes, that's all that 60s and 70s, those bands, they were really good, they were really tight. It doesn't even matter if I like the music or not, listening to it or seeing live films or videos, it's really good, they are good,
Absolutely.
Those bands.
It had to be.
Even these bands, even music that doesn't appeal to me, you can watch it and, imagine myself getting up on stage with these people and playing with them. Can I keep up, I don't know. I like to think I could, but I'm not sure,
Yeah.
And to play at that level, some of those rock bands at intense volume level in these huge places, it takes a lot of concentration and energy.
certainly.
Yeah, it's really hard to hear yourself on those big stages.
Yeah.
So hey, I have I don't know if we want to wrap up soon, but I did think
Yeah, we
maybe a
do.
good closing subject for all of us, since the original agenda was to talk about songwriting, and you sort of were bringing up some new techniques like working with notation and using your synth. So I thought maybe we could all discuss like new creative song techniques we might have encountered lately. So for me, I'm doing a new project called Ventifacts with Damon Waitkus from Jack of the Clock, and it's a microtonal experimental folk album. So it's mostly acoustic. We've got microtonal hammer dulcimer and acoustic guitar and a bunch of stuff like that. And Damon, this is interesting because Damon is writing all the lyrics, but I'm writing a lot of the vocal melodies. So he sends me lyrics and like snippets of music, and then I try and turn that into a song by making the vocal melody and adding instrumentation. And that's never been my workflow before. So I'm surprised it's actually working, but
what I've heard sounds amazing. Yeah, it sounds amazing so far.
Cool, man. Yeah.
I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, it's not easy to get into something like that really makes you work in a new way, is it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
You know, it's rare, unfortunately. And especially in this last year or so when, you know, we're not able to go out and work with so many people anymore and bump into musicians and
right.
You know.
Well, it's
you know, I mean, you know how it is when you working together with someone. I mean, when they're right there on the chair next to you.
Yeah, I mean, Ben and
how quickly the ideas come and build into something that neither of you could have done. You know,
the fact we made both Lunatic and the new one long distance, because Ben's in another state than me. So I mean, it's been very interesting to make entire albums long distance.
We've met twice in person. Nick played one song live with us once.
That's
the definition of a one-off.
Yeah.
But it's funny. After we did meet, I feel like that really, the future stuff from there went even better. Like we were working well together before, but there really is a lot to just getting a little bit of FaceTime.
Sure.
Yeah, that's important. Yeah, you finally get the vibe of the person better. But something I love so much is because I do so much stuff on my own, and I love that too. But I did some years ago, before I started doing my solo tours, Kavus and I did a couple of gigs together as a duo, playing my songs. Yeah, in the UK. And I was over at his house one time, and I was playing the song Elsie, you know. I was just messing around, you know. He was making breakfast or something, and I was just sitting in the living room playing that song. We didn't do it. You know, it wasn't one of the ones that we learned, and I was just sitting there playing it because I had sent him all the songs, and he learned them on his own. And then I showed up when we were going to rehearse together. So here I was just sitting here playing this song, just messing about, and he came in with the coffee or whatever, and he heard it. And he sort of perked up, and he went and got his guitar, and he sat down and started doing something. There was like nothing like what I would have ever done or thought of, and it made it go in a whole different, you know,
that's so awesome,
direction completely. It gave it a whole new feel, and that I miss, you know, so much of that instant interaction with musicians, this building of something out of nothing, really, you know.
Yeah, I miss my bandmates so much. We haven't had practice since last March.
Yeah.
We've been sending stuff back and forth, so I'm just grateful for the existing relationships that you can at least try and maintain and continue.
Yeah, we're so fortunate in this day and age to have this kind of technology, you know.
But I'd love to ask, songwriting wise, you and Nick, like, what are you excited about right now? What's inspiring you in your songwriting?
Let's see. Right now, we just finished up book one, which was a big project. I'm kind of inspired right now to maybe go somewhere different in between book 1 and book 2. I've been mentioning, sort of floating the idea with Ben of doing almost like I don't know, like the Proletarians, but under a different name, making some slightly different music. So I've just been listening to a lot of what I consider strong songwriting, to hoping some of it seeps into me. A lot of Prefab Sprout, which I mentioned. Been re-listening to a lot of power pop greats, and even some metal here and there, just mixing it up. Yeah, how about you, Bob?
Well, I don't know. I just finished the album in, when was it? It came out, I finished it in October. And so I will wait until I have some sort of idea of where to begin for the next one. I always like to have a kind of starting idea.
Yeah.
As rough as it may be, like I knew this album that just came out was going to be this kind of stuff, you know. So that gave me, okay, fine, I can do a song with just those chords in it, and it'll be great. I've had for a while an idea of doing an album of pieces about haunted churches. And in a very, very sparse, nothing rocky at all, you know, very, very, 10 seconds sometimes between the notes. And
I'm down for that.
very spacious. And I don't know if I'll ever do it. I have a few ideas kind of notated, and I enjoy them. But otherwise, I just, come into the studio and put on the notation software and just start messing around, and almost always come up with something and think, that's really cool, I'll put that aside and pick it up again someday.
So is that now your
but at the moment, I'm happy to, I'm thinking about trying to do a couple of shows. I mean, do this live stream I'm going to do on Saturday. So I'm just going back and sort of learning some songs that I haven't played since I recorded them.
And I have a close friend of mine who lives in Amsterdam, Rita Karpati. Do you know her?
Oh yeah. I love Rita. Yeah.
Yes.
We've had some fun times playing bass together.
Exactly.
Handing the bass back and forth.
She's such a brilliant composer. She's already composed a track, kind of as a guest composer for our next book.
Oh, cool, man. Yeah.
I know she.
Yeah. I really like Rita. I love Rita. She great.
Idolizes you. She always talks to me about your production and your music.
Oh, we have fun together. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
she'll be pleased to see.
We were staying. I did a gig in Preston, in the UK, and she was there because there was one of those Cardiacs festivals.
Yeah.
She was there, and then afterward we stayed at a friend's house, and he had a Rickenbacker bass, and she picked it up and was playing with it, and then I said, oh, let me show you something I like to do, and I play it, and I hand it back to her, and it was really, really fun.
That's really cool.
And
I remember you were playing a Rickenbacker bass in the 5UU's live footage that I saw.
It's the one this the only bass I still have. I mean, I've got this acoustic bass. There it is. I bought recently, but I've still got that bass I bought in 1974.
Wow.
It's not here, or I'd show it. It's up. It's kind of far away right now in another room. I'd show it to you. But yeah, it's the only bass I've ever used on everything I've ever done. I love that bass, man. It does everything I want it to do.
It's reliable.
Yeah. Well, yeah, maybe we should go now.
Yeah.
We got to feed the dogs.
It was a good talk, though, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was good.
Super fun, and
I don't know why they extended it to longer. Maybe they're trying to be kindly in these pandemic days or something.
Perhaps.
Yeah. I mean,
so kind of them.
Yeah. They only made $5 billion today, so.
Yeah.
Okay, well.
Yeah, thanks for talking.
I guess it's up to me to brutally sever the connection. So this was great, fun. I talked too much compared to you guys.
I don't think
Oh,
so.
So let's
I
do it
love-
again sometime.
Sounds
Yeah.
good.
Let's do it again.
It was a
Okay.
pleasure. Thank you.
Have an awesome evening. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you too. Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye.